I never thought I'd be sitting here alone in an empty house telling this story, but honestly, looking back, I can't even say I'm surprised it ended this way. My name is Marissa, I'm 32, and I just lost my husband because, apparently, cheating is just a mistake, wasn't the magic fix-all phrase I thought it would be. 5 years ago, I was the happiest bride you'd ever seen. Oliver was everything. Tall, handsome, good with his hands, and had this confidence that made everyone in the room pay attention when he spoke. We met when he was doing some work at my parents' place. I brought him lemonade while my parents were out, and the way he looked at me when I walked in, I still get shivers thinking about it. He asked for my number that same day, and things moved fast, like, scary fast. We moved in together after 3 months, got engaged 3 months after that, and were married within a year. My sister Brooke tried warning me we were rushing. "You barely know him," she'd say. Whatever. I knew everything I needed to know. Oliver had his own business, was ambitious, and he looked at me like I was the answer to every question he'd ever had. That was enough. The first 2 years were good. Great, even. We bought this little fixer-upper that Oliver swore he would transform into our dream home. I still remember how cute he looked. All excited about crown molding and hardwood floors, sketching plans on napkins at dinner. I was working at this office doing paperwork all day, nothing exciting, but it paid well enough. Oliver's business was growing, and everything seemed perfect. Then came year 3. The honeymoon phase wore off, I guess. The renovations Oliver promised? Half finished everywhere. Our bathroom's been gutted for 8 months. 8. But somehow, he always has time to help his buddy Dave install a deck, or his cousin with kitchen cabinets. Meanwhile, I've been showering in a bathroom with exposed pipes and no proper lighting since last winter. I tried talking to him about it at first. "Hey, when are you gonna finish our bathroom?" He'd always say, "Soon, babe, I've just got a lot of paying jobs right now." Or, "This weekend for sure." But the weekend would come, and he'd be too tired or had promised someone else his help. After a while, I stopped asking. He started working later and later. At first, I believed he was busy with actual work, but some nights he'd come home smelling like beer, and I knew he'd been hanging out with his work friends instead of coming home to me. I'd try to look cute, cook dinner, but half the time the food would be cold by the time he walked in the door. I got lonely, really lonely. I started spending more time on social media, just scrolling, looking at other people's seemingly perfect lives while mine was falling apart amid drywall dust and broken promises. That's when Michael messaged me. Michael and I dated back in high school, nothing serious, but he was my first real boyfriend. He'd seen my comment on a mutual friend's post and slid into my DMs with a simple, "Long time no see, how's life treating you?" I still remember the little flutter in my stomach when I saw his name. He always was the hot one in school, the one that got away, kind of. We started chatting, just catching up at first. He works at this local place that everyone hangs out at, told me I should stop by sometime. I told him I was married, of course. I wasn't trying to hide that. He said he just wanted to reconnect as friends. The conversations got more frequent, then more personal. He'd ask about my day when Oliver didn't. He'd compliment my new profile picture seconds after I posted it. He remembered things I mentioned weeks ago that Oliver would forget 5 minutes after I said them. It felt good to be noticed again. I started hiding my phone when Oliver would walk into the room. Nothing had happened, not really. But I knew the way Michael and I were talking wasn't exactly innocent anymore. Michael would send messages like, "Thinking about you today," or, "You looked amazing in that dress in your story." I'd reply with heart emojis and "miss your face," like it wasn't crossing a line. One night, Oliver asked who I was texting, smiling so much. I lied and said it was Brooke. The lie came so easily it scared me a little, but not enough to stop. The thing is, I wasn't planning on anything happening with Michael. I just liked the attention, liked feeling wanted again. Oliver was so wrapped up in his unfinished projects and his work buddies, and I was just there, like the unfinished bathroom. Another project he'd get to eventually. That coffee with Michael? It changed everything. I showed up early, heart racing like I was 16 again. I spent an hour picking out my outfit. The jeans Oliver always says make my butt look good, and this low-cut blouse I never wear around the house anymore. What's the point when your husband doesn't even look up from his phone? Michael stood up when I walked in. Actually stood up like men do in those old movies. He hugged me a second too long, and I let him. We talked for 2 hours straight. 2 hours. When was the last time Oliver and I talked for even 20 minutes without him checking his work messages? That first coffee turned into a weekly thing. Every Thursday I'd tell Oliver I was meeting work friends for happy hour. Instead, I'd meet Michael at this little place across town where nobody knew us. I started wearing matching underwear on Thursdays. I told myself it was just for me, for my confidence. Such a lie. At home, everything kept getting worse. Oliver and I had this massive fight about the bathroom renovation. $7,000 of fixtures sitting in our garage collecting dust while I'm showering in what basically looks like a construction zone. When are you going to finish what you started? I screamed at him. I wasn't just talking about the bathroom. I'm working my butt off to provide for us, he yelled back. Do you know how many hours I'm putting in? Yeah, I knew exactly how many hours he was putting in at Dave's place, or watching the game with his brother, or whatever excuse he had that week for not being home with me. Our anniversary was coming up, 5 years. Oliver actually tried to plan a weekend away at this cute bed and breakfast upstate. I should have been thrilled, right? But he booked it for the same weekend as trivia night at Michael's work. Michael had been talking about how his team needed one more person, how much fun we'd have. The thought of not seeing Michael that Thursday made my stomach hurt. I told Oliver I couldn't go that weekend because of a mandatory work training. He looked so disappointed. For a second, I almost felt bad. Then he just shrugged and said, "Okay, I'll cancel it. No fight, no let's find another weekend. Just giving up." That's Oliver for you, always giving up on us. The Thursday meetups with Michael kept getting more intense. He'd touch my hand when making a point. I'd let my knee rest against his under the table. We'd text constantly. Good morning texts, good night texts, random thoughts throughout the day. I started taking my phone into the bathroom so I could respond without Oliver seeing. One night, Oliver picked up my phone when a notification came through. I nearly had a heart attack until I realized I'd set Michael's name to Karen from work in my contacts. You and Karen text a lot, Oliver said, handing my phone back. We're working on a big project together, I lied, my heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. Oliver looked at me for a long moment. You know, Michael from your high school keeps liking and commenting on all your Instagram posts. Pretty interested in your life for someone you haven't seen in years. My face got hot. We reconnected online. We're just friends. Why are you checking who likes my posts anyway? That's kind of controlling, don't you think? The hurt on his face should have made me stop, should have been a wake-up call. Instead, I turned it around on him, made him the bad guy for being suspicious when he had every right to be. The next Thursday, after trivia night, Michael walked me to my car. We'd won second place, and I was buzzing from the victory and the 2 glasses of wine I'd had. When we got to my car, he pushed my hair behind my ear, just like he used to do in high school. I've wanted to do this since the moment I saw you walk into that coffee shop, he said, and then he was kissing me. I kissed him back. Hard. He tasted like the craft beer he'd been drinking, and his hands were in my hair, and for those few minutes, I felt alive again. Really alive. When I finally pulled away, both of us breathing hard, I said, "This is just physical. I'm married." He nodded. "Just physical, I can work with that." I drove home feeling guilty, but also excited, validated, like I'd been dying of thirst and finally got a sip of water. It was just a kiss, I told myself. Not really cheating. Not really a betrayal. Just a kiss. Things with Michael escalated fast after that first kiss. We went from innocent coffee meetups to full-on hotel room rendezvous within 3 weeks. I became an expert at lying, creating this whole alternate life Oliver knew nothing about. I told Oliver I'd joined this women's networking group that met twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. In reality, those were my Michael nights. I kept a change of clothes in my trunk so I could go straight from work to see him. I even had a whole makeup bag with toiletries and perfume to cover up any evidence. I created this fake contact in my phone. Karen from work, for all of Michael's texts. I had every detail planned out. Michael and I couldn't keep our hands off each other. The sex was different than with Oliver. Urgent, exciting, like we were stealing something precious. In a way, I guess we were. I started taking more and more risks. Once, during our anniversary dinner, I was texting Michael under the table while Oliver was talking about our future. Oliver had taken me to this fancy restaurant, really trying to make an effort, and there I was, half listening while sexting another man. The worst part, I wasn't even that bothered by it, but the lowest moment happened when Oliver's dad had his heart attack. Oliver called me 7 times while I was in Michael's bed. When I finally checked my phone and saw all the missed calls, I knew something was wrong. I called Oliver back, and he was sobbing, saying he needed me, that his dad was in the hospital. I told him I'd come right away, but I took the time to shower at Michael's place first. I didn't want to smell like another man while comforting my husband. Even now, I can't believe how cold that was. Money started becoming an issue. I was taking cash from our joint account for hotels, for little gifts for Michael, for the gas driving across town to see him. Oliver started asking questions about our finances, about where the money was going. I'd make up expenses, tell him I had to get my car fixed or that I'd splurged on new work clothes. The lying got easier with practice. I'd look Oliver straight in the eyes and tell him I loved him, then text Michael the moment he left the room. I convinced myself that what Oliver didn't know wouldn't hurt him. And besides, if he was a better husband, more attentive, more present, I wouldn't need Michael at all. That's what I told myself, anyway. The worst thing I did was take $800 from our savings for a weekend trip with Michael to this cabin upstate. I told Oliver it was for a work retreat that I had to pay for up front and get reimbursed later. We spent the whole weekend in bed, barely leaving the cabin except to get more wine. It was like we were the only 2 people in the world. I didn't think about Oliver once that weekend, but when I got home, I noticed a change in Oliver. He was quieter, more observant. He'd ask casual questions about my networking group, about Karen from work. He started checking receipts, asking to see our credit card statements. Once, I caught him looking at my phone while I was in the shower. I should have been more careful, but part of me was getting sloppy on purpose. The lying was exhausting, and some sick part of me almost wanted to get caught. To have it all out in the open. I started keeping a second phone. Just a cheap prepaid one that Michael had gotten me. I kept it hidden in my tampon box, the one place I knew Oliver would never look. It was our direct line, where we could text freely without me worrying about deleting messages. There were so many close calls. Once, Oliver almost found the phone when it was charging in my car. Another time, he picked up my regular phone right as a notification from Karen came through saying how amazing last night was. I managed to grab it from him, claiming it was work stuff, but I could tell he was suspicious. Everything came to a head last Friday. I'd just gotten home from work, was planning to change quickly before meeting Michael, when Oliver said we needed to talk. His voice had this finality to it that made my stomach drop. I found something, he said, and we need to discuss it tonight. No networking group, no last-minute work emergencies. Be home by 6. I walked into the kitchen and found Oliver sitting at our table, calm in a way that terrified me. No hello, no kiss, nothing. Just this eerie composure that made the hair on my arms stand up. In front of him was a folder. Neat, organized Oliver with his evidence all compiled and ready. Sit down, Marissa, he said, his voice flat. I tried to act normal. What's going on? You're scaring me? He just pushed the folder toward me. Open it. With shaking hands, I flipped it open and felt my world collapse. Screenshots of texts between Michael and me, explicit ones. My location history showing regular visits to Michael's apartment. Hotel receipts. A statement from our joint account highlighting all the cash withdrawals I'd made that aligned perfectly with my networking group nights. Oliver, I can explain, I started, but the words died in my throat when he placed my second phone on the table. My secret phone from my tampon box. He'd found everything. How long have you known? I whispered. 6 weeks, he said. I've known for 6 weeks, Marissa. I wanted to be sure. To have all the facts before confronting you. 6 weeks. He'd been watching me lie, sneak around, betray him for 6 weeks, gathering evidence while I thought I was getting away with it. The humiliation was overwhelming. It didn't mean anything, I tried. It was just physical. We were going through a rough patch and you were never home, and... Stop. Just one word, but it cut me off completely. I'm not interested in your excuses. That's when it hit me, the reality of what I'd done and what was about to happen. The tears came fast and hard, gulping sobs that made it hard to breathe. I fell to my knees next to his chair. Oliver, please, you can't do this. Everyone makes mistakes. Cheating is just a mistake. People recover from this all the time. I was crying so hard I started gagging, mascara running down my face. He looked at me with such disgust. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is accidentally shrinking my favorite shirt in the dryer. What you did was a series of deliberate choices. For months. I'll do anything, I sobbed, clutching at his arm. Anything to fix this. I'll cut off all contact with him. I'll go to therapy. I'll be a better wife. Please, Oliver, please don't throw away 5 years over one mistake. One mistake? His voice finally showed emotion, pure incredulity. You've been sleeping with another man for 3 months. You stole from our joint accounts. You lied to my face every single day. You were with him when my father was in the hospital. I didn't know he knew that last part. It knocked the wind out of me. As Oliver stood up and walked to our bedroom, I followed him, still pleading, promises pouring out between sobs. He started packing a bag, methodically placing folded clothes inside like this was just another business trip. Where are you going? I demanded, panic rising. To my brother's. I've already spoken to a lawyer. A lawyer. The word hit me like a slap. This wasn't just a fight. He was leaving. Really leaving. Something in me snapped. I lurched forward, grabbing his face, trying to kiss him. Baby, please, look at me. Remember how good we are together. I pulled at my shirt, buttons popping off, desperate to reach him physically since my words weren't working. We can get past this. Let me show you how sorry I am. Oliver recoiled, pushing my hands away. Don't. Have some dignity, Marissa. Dignity? Dignity went out the window the moment I realized I was about to lose everything. I followed him from room to room, alternating between blaming him, you were emotionally unavailable, you never finished the renovations, and pathetic begging. I threatened to hurt myself if he left. I reminded him of our vows, for better or worse, conveniently ignoring the forsaking all others part I'd trampled all over. When he finally had his bag packed and moved toward the front door, I completely lost it. I threw myself against the door, physically blocking his exit. You can't leave, I sobbed. I won't let you. Move, Marissa? His voice was firm but tired. So tired. No. We need to talk this through. You can't just leave. When he tried to reach around me for the doorknob, I dropped to the floor, wrapping myself around his legs like a toddler having a tantrum. Please don't go. Please don't go. I kept repeating, holding on so tight my arms hurt. Oliver stood there, looking down at me with this expression I'll never forget. Part pity, part disgust, part exhaustion. Then he took out his phone and called his brother. 20 minutes later, his brother Jake was at our door. I was still on the floor, still crying, though my voice had gone hoarse. Jake took one look at the scene, me clinging to Oliver's legs, Oliver standing there with his packed bag, and understood immediately. The weeks after Oliver left were the most desperate of my life. I became someone I didn't recognize, a stalker, essentially. I'd drive by his brother's place hoping to catch a glimpse of him. I sent dozens of texts that went unanswered. I called until he blocked my number. I created fake social media accounts when he blocked my real ones. I showed up at his worksite, causing such a scene that he lost a client. I still remember the foreman asking him, "Is this your crazy wife?" And Oliver responding, "Soon-to-be ex-wife," without even looking at me. I was escorted off the property while screaming about our love story, how we were meant to be together, how everybody deserves a second chance. When the divorce papers arrived, I thought I was prepared. I wasn't. Seeing it all laid out in clinical legal terms, the division of assets, the timeline for the proceedings, made it real in a way nothing else had. Oliver wasn't coming back. This wasn't a rough patch. This was the end. In my most desperate move, I drained our joint account, $7,200, and used it to buy him an expensive watch, a weekend trip package, and dozens of other gifts I thought might remind him of the good times. He returned every single one unopened. I had to sell my car to repay Oliver for the money I'd taken from our joint account. I lost my job, too. after repeatedly calling in sick to drive past Oliver's workplace or sit outside our house. I was forced to move back in with my disapproving parents at 33, sleeping in my childhood bedroom surrounded by remnants of a simpler time. It's been a year since Oliver left. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. Last month, I ran into Oliver at my cousin Amber's wedding with his new girlfriend Tessa. I'd had too much champagne, and when I saw them slow dancing, something in me snapped. I walked right up to them and made a nasty comment about her dress. My Uncle Ted had to escort me outside before I completely ruined Amber's day. Last week, I saw it on Facebook. Oliver's relationship status changed to engaged. The comments section was flooded with congratulations, people saying they'd never seen Oliver so happy, how perfect they were together. I drove past our old house, his house now. The renovations were complete. The bathroom I'd showered in with exposed pipes for 8 months was probably beautiful now. The half-finished kitchen likely had all the custom cabinets installed. He'd finished everything after I left. Or rather, after he'd made me leave. For a brief moment I saw clearly. Oliver hadn't been the problem. But even this realization was fleeting. By the time I got home, I'd already reconstructed my narrative. If Oliver had been more attentive, I wouldn't have been vulnerable to Michael. If he'd really loved me, he would have forgiven one mistake. The truth is, I don't think I'm capable of the kind of honest self-reflection that might actually help me grow from this. It's easier to blame circumstances, blame Oliver, blame anyone but myself. Last night, I created a new dating profile. As I filled out the "What I'm Looking For" section, I wrote, "Looking for someone who understands that relationships are complicated and mistakes happen." Because that's the lesson I've taken from all this. Not that I should be more honest or more faithful or more accountable, but that I should find someone who will forgive me when I inevitably mess up again. Someone who won't have such rigid, unrealistic expectations of fidelity. Someone who knows that cheating is just a mistake, not the end of the world. The real mistake wasn't the cheating. It was choosing a man who couldn't forgive like a real husband should.